good.
I know. The music that you just heard is your invitation to settle in and prepare for our worship service. Please put your phones and other devices in airplane mode for the duration of the service. This keeps those pesky devices quiet and helps us provide a higher quality stream for those listening online. Still. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, that you are welcome here. So, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or watching at home, whether you are with us for the first time or for the 1,000th time, we are glad you're here. My name is Vivian Stidvand. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm honored to serve as your lay leader this morning. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are a movement working for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in community is one part of that work.
Good morning. I'm Eric Hepburn. I'm honored and pleased to serve as your pulpiteer. I'm excited to be here this morning for the second of this 8-part series. Please join me in reciting the words to light our chalice. We light this flame to remind us love is the center. Connect, mature, and deepen. Love remains the center. When the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. As the light of this candle refuses to participate, amen. All right. I'm not unwilling to take no for an answer. I'm going to the classical fire department source, which is here, hidden behind Joe. If I was better prepared, we would have a backup fire support in the pulpit, but unwilling to go forward without flame in the building, Eric remembered where he saw a lighter while rummaging through the closet on Saturday. Let us greet this day in song. Our opening hymn is Lift Every Voice and Sing, number 149 in the gray hymnal. Lyrics will be projected. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able. I invite to the stage our Director of Religious Experience, Candace.
Hello. Exploration.
Exploration.
Yeah, religious exploration. Yay. Let's see what's in our Wonder Box today. It's noisy. It is a book. This summer in RE, Religious Exploration, we are exploring service to others. This week we will practice helping others learn by creating book notes to place in books in our local free little library. So thank you so much for your used book donations. Reading a book is a door into a magical summer, and we can encourage others to have a magical summer with reading as well. Now let's hear a story about someone who needed a lot of reading encouragement.
Miss Brooks Loves Books, and I Don't, by Barbara Botner, illustrated by Michael Emberley. Miss Brooks is our librarian. She loves books. A lot. She loves The Runaway Bunny, and Babar, and Where the Wild Things Are, and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I asked Miss Brooks why she dresses up for reading circle. I want you to get as excited about books as I am, she says. I think Miss Brooks gets a little too excited, and I bet her costumes itch. Halloween means we each have to find a poem to share, but all the books with witches, ghosts, and goblins are checked out, and I hate pumpkins. So I make up a Halloween poem of my own. The class looks at me funny. Miss Brooks says, well, it's a start. All year long, Miss Brooks reads us books. Books about dragons and pilgrims and presidents. Books about love and leprechauns, groundhogs even. It's vexing. Then in May, Miss Brooks tells us about something truly terrifying. Book Week. You each need to pick a favorite story to share with the class. I want you to wear a costume and tell us all about it. Really show us why you love it, she says. I'll never love a book the way you do, I tell Miss Brooks. Don't be so sure, she says. When I get home, I ask my mother if we can move to a new town. My mother says there's a librarian in every town. I ask if she wants to do my assignment for me. I've already been in the first grade, says my mother. Every single day of Book Week, kids share stories about trains and ferries, cowboys and dogs. When Miss Brooke asks what I think, I say, too flowery, too furry, too clickety, too yippity. So Miss Brooks fills my bag with more books for me to read with my mom. But I don't like any of them. They're too kissy, too pink, and too silly, I tell my mother. You're as stubborn as a wart, she says. Warts? I want to read a story with warts, I shout. My mother finds a book called Shrek. Shrek has hair on his nose, and he snorts. I love that. Can you read it again, I ask. I love this book. I have to practice the words over and over, but my mother helps. Then we make an ogre costume. I make stick-on warts for the whole class. When I get to school the next day, I ask Miss Brooks to lend me a hand. When I say the word snort, the whole class snorts. I explain why a stubborn, smelly, snorty ogre searching for a revolting bride makes me laugh. Miss Brooks says she's glad I found a book to love. She says that even ogres, like me, can find something funny and fantastic and appalling at the library. And that is the slimy truth.
All children and youth wishing to go to their groups are welcome to exit. Everyone else, will you please join me in singing them out? Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you. Sometimes we're carrying something on our heart that can prevent us from being fully present. Here in this community, our sharing of these things with one another is medicine. It is part of our healing, and like all medicine, it must be concentrated and potent. So we invite you to aim at 2 to 3 strong sentences. So if you're carrying a joy or a sorrow or both on your heart this morning, I invite you to raise your hand for the microphone. Thank you for sharing. And for all that remains unspoken, the love of this community is with you. And now, performing our anthem, And Then She Sleeps, Mel Moss and TJ Singh.
While he gets his guitar ready, let me go ahead and give you a little context. This is one afternoon on our patio. TJ pulls out his guitar that he hadn't been playing for very long and starts strumming a couple of chords, and I start humming along. And the next thing I know, I'm writing a song about a woman who's having issues with addiction. And so this song was born with many hours sitting on the patio. No, that word doesn't work. Yes, this word does work, but this is what we have at the as a final draft. So, yeah, let me get your mic. Shell does cocaine and plays the violin. Opium dens and Johns are days. Keep going. Mysteries to be solved have always been, and tomorrow never comes today. And then she sleeps like a ghost at a daily rest, lost in dreamless reverie, where sins dissolve like smoke in the air, and time forgets its urgency. And then she sleeps. The clock ticks loud, but she doesn't hear. The city outside just disappears. In shadows deep, she hides away. She's nothing left to steal or save. And then she sleeps like a ghost finally laid to rest, lost in dreamless reverie, where sins dissolve like smoke in the air, and time forgets its urgency. And then she sleeps. She wakes up to an empty flat, with no one to love her except her cat. In sorrow she finds loneliness and misery. She's hit her bottom. Looking at a gun in hand, she wonders what fate has planned. Fumbling bullets with a nervous hand, blood in her gums, she looks away and sees a glimmer of hope on the way. And then she sleeps like a ghost finally laid to rest, lost in dreamless
endless reverie, where sin dissolves like smoke in the air, and time forgets its urgency, and then she sleeps. Cheryl wakes up and plays violin. Hope is now the order of her day. Mysteries have all been solved, and tomorrow always comes today, and now she sleeps. And now she sleeps.
Thank you, guys. Now excuse me, I invite you to a place of deeper stillness and reflection with this passage from Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field. The coming scientific revolution heralds the end of dualism in every sense. Far from destroying God, science for the first time is proving his existence by demonstrating that a higher collective consciousness is out there. There need no longer be two truths, the truth of science and the truth of religion. There can be one united vision of the world. This revolution in scientific thinking also promises to give us back a sense of optimism, something that has been stripped out of our sense of ourselves with the arid vision of 20th century philosophy, largely derived from the views espoused by science. We are not isolated beings living our desperate lives on a lonely planet in an indifferent universe. We never were alone. We were always part of a larger whole. We were and always had been at the center of things. Things did not fall apart. The center did hold, and it was who we were. It was we who were doing the holding. We had far more power than we realized to heal ourselves, our loved ones, even our communities. Each of us had the ability and together a great collective power to improve our lot in life. Our life, in every sense, was in our hands.
Today we're talking about interdependence. It's the first of this constellation of shared values that comes out of this love at the center reimagining of the UUA's principles. Now, the old Principle 7 under the old system was phrased like this: respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And the new one, for those of you who've been around UUism for a long time, number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and number 6, this interdependent web of life one, 2 most oft quoted. The 2 principles that are most likely to get sermons written about them. So we've bitten off a lot today trying to shove interdependence into one service. But I'm going to try and hit a highlight reel of why I think it's important. And the new one reads like this: we honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. So one of the things that I like and appreciate about this new articulation of interdependence is it's no longer in the passive voice. It's no longer, oh, that's just a fact about things out there. It's a set of promises about how we are going to show up to this world that I think matter. Mutuality and justice. Some of you may be aware already that for the next 3 years, the UUA will be studying decarceration, is one word for it. An end to mass incarceration is another word for it. Prison industrial complex abolition is another phrase that's being used. Now, this is a study, so they're not saying this is the bandwagon we have decided to jump on. They're saying we think that there's some significant veracity to this movement, and we think it's worth undertaking as a major area of study for the next 3 years. So we're going to be doing that. But you can see the echoes of that here. Sustainable relationships. It might not be sustainable to keep more of our siblings, brothers and sisters in prison than any other country in the world. That might not be a sustainable practice. Relationships of care and respect. I don't think there are many in this room who have an illusion that care and respect is part of the culture of prisons. Mutuality and justice. Even the victims of crime acknowledge that our current system of justice doesn't provide them with any. That revenge is just as hollow as all the fables let us know. And another person's life getting ruined because they had a part in ruining some portion of your life through injury, through abuse, through neglect, through the murder of someone you loved, doesn't fill that hole. There's nothing restorative about incarceration. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. That, in a nutshell, is the concept underlying what we call restorative justice, where we ask what harm was done and how do we begin a healing process for that harm. How do we rebuild the social relationships that are necessary for all of us to experience belonging and safety and get our needs met? I used a word last week, and I had at least one person come up after the service and ask me about it. I joked about the 7 principles. I half joked, I'll be clear. I half joked about the 7 principles being the 7 banalities, because a rather cantankerous former minister of mine used to say that quite often, and at least at that time in my life, I found it rather amusing. Although I had plenty of congregants sitting next to me in the pews who found it rather irritating and not at all amusing. So what does banal mean? Banal means so lacking in originality as to be obvious and boring. That's what banal means. And we're all familiar with the sort of comic trope of someone being Captain Obvious in a moment, right? Showing up and saying the thing that everybody already knows. But there are benefits to showing up at certain moments as Captain Obvious. For one thing, it's usually not super clear whether something's obvious to everyone, as obvious to everyone else as it is to us. I think what Dr. Laura was trying to get at in calling the original 7 banal was the idea that in order to get consensus out of a committee process, things got watered down and the sharp edges got kind of removed. But in a very important Captain Obvious way, I think they're still really important. I think they're good stepping stones or places to stand. There is a famous expression that says if you want to move the universe, you need a lever and a place to stand. And so I will propose to you in a prophetic way that love is the lever, and these 6 shared values are places we have built to stand so that we can apply that lever to the challenges that we face, the psychosocial, spiritual challenges we face internally, the challenges that we face in our families and our communities, the challenges that we face in the larger world. So, let's talk about the banal version of interdependence. And I'm going to use that term in a non-pejorative way, the Captain Obvious version of interdependence, and then we'll hint at something, a few things a little deeper or weirder. One of the weird things about modernity, about the dissolution of what we might think of as village life or village-mindedness, is our tendency to walk away from relationship when things get hard. Yeah, we were friends for a few years, but then something uncomfortable happened and we just stopped, and who knows what happened to them. That was 20 years ago, I don't know. Like, we have a real tendency, and it's treated as normal, that when a challenge or a potential for conflict comes up in our relationships, we walk away as if it were consequenceless. But one of the things I hope resonated with you about our congregational read from last year was this idea. Conflict is a relationship requesting to deepen. Conflict is a relationship requesting to deepen. So when you walk away from conflict in a relationship that had, up to that moment of discomfort, been important to you, you're choosing comfort over growth. I just want to say it real plainly. You're choosing comfort over growth. Both of you in that relationship probably have something to learn from this conflict that's emerging. For those of you who like this kind of language, you could say that God or the universe is inviting you to the challenge that you need in your life. Now, I don't want this to be misread as an invitation to stay in an abusive relationship or anything of the kind. That's not what I'm getting at. I believe in healthy boundaries. I also think that Prentice was wise. She's the author of our congregational read last year. She's also wise when she says that boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and love me simultaneously. And I have met a few toxic people where end of long 10-foot pole is the answer to that question. Amen. Everybody's like, oh, yes, I have. I have met a few people like that in my life. So I don't want you to hear what I'm saying as an invitation to call that toxic person as soon as you leave this sermon and say, let's get back into it. But I do want you to be a little more curious when conflict comes up in your life and relationships, and you have the socially normalized reaction of like, it's not worth it. Never, if they're going to be that difficult, they can just, when that socially normalized ego defensive reaction comes up in you, I just want to invite you to get a little more curious about whether or not the nature of the conflict that's coming up is inviting both of you to love each other by helping each other heal from whatever thing is coming up. And while usually I'm not a big fan of sort of dichotomous thinking, I will say that there's a bit of a dichotomous sounding truth that just keeps coming up for me in the work that I want to share with you. And it sounds a little something like this. We all carry wounds from our past. When they surface, we confront them and start healing, or we suppress them and we hand them off, we start then doing that damage to the other people in our life. Now, that's not a choice, that link. The repression is the choice. The negative, unintended, inevitable consequence of that choice to not deal with your stuff when it comes up for you means that you are going to pass it on to the people in your life you care about most. That's the mechanism of intergenerational trauma. And it's one of the main things that if in this community we can learn how to start healing the transmission of intergenerational trauma, we can radically change the trajectory of our own lives and the surrounding worlds in a ripple effect. And the reason that that's possible is because of this interdependence thing. Because you are not as separate as your mind would have you believe from everything else. We know that from direct experience with families, with communities, with our animal companions. Gardeners know it from their gardens and their plants. It matters. The relationships we form, the care and attention we give one another matter. And the depths and reciprocities of those relationships are sometimes hard to understand. They're hard to see. They're hard to appreciate. I asked Vivian to read this quote that we started with from the field this morning because there are some things that we are discovering through quantum science that, in my humble opinion, overlap with some significant themes of ancient mysticism. And they start to tear down, they start to produce conflict between the old paradigm and what we might call a new emerging paradigm of how we understand the world that we live in. So one of the things that we've thought is that nothing, including information, can move faster than the speed of light, and that the universe is reducible to simply the physical phenomena that we understand. And while these simplifying assumptions have been good enough for earthly engineering processes, you should know that at this moment, this is going to sound like a conspiracy. I promised I talked to a world-ranked physicist last night to verify that I wasn't nuts. The Chinese currently have satellites in space that use quantum entanglement for communication, which means untraceable, uninterceptable, encrypted, faster than light, instantaneous communication between two spots in space. So, there are a bazillion things going on out there. Water memory is one. Something called biophoton emission is another. Now, here's what I'm telling you. I don't want to go down some, oh my God, Eric's the liberal version of QAnon conspiracy theory rabbit hole here. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If I can look over the course of this last week, from last Sunday to this Sunday, and find 9 topics where the old paradigm is seriously in question, even though there are a bunch of people who are like, nope, the current paradigm is just fine, thank you very much. And if you've read your Thomas Kuhn, who wrote about the structure of scientific revolution and how scientific revolution is more of a cultural thing about humans not wanting to let go of their belief systems than it is a thing about the progress of science, then you start to say, look, man, not all 9 of those things have to end up being true for us to be on the verge of a new paradigm. We will probably likely find out that some of them are not true, or that they're true for reasons other than what we currently speculate. But probably some of them are true, and we're still in denial about it. Let me tell you a story from, I think I usually frame these as dumb stories. And I only call them dumb stories because they're my little snippet stories from my own past, which doesn't make them dumb. I just like calling them that for some reason. Maybe it lowers the bar on your expectations just a little bit. If I call it a dumb story, maybe then you're like, that wasn't that dumb. I thought it was pretty decent. So I'm sitting in material science class as a 19-year-old civil engineering student. And we're getting ready to go into the lab, and we've got these bolts of steel, and you put them in this giant hydraulic machine, and it pulls the steel and measures deformation, how much the steel is moving, and how much force it's taken to do that. Okay? So we're getting ready to do this, and we're going to go run the experiment and capture the data, and we're learning how do you do material science, how do you test the durability of materials, all this kind of stuff. And we get the graph off, and there's this like smooth curve, and then there's a little hitch in the curve, and it comes back down, it goes smooth again, and then the material fails. Right? And like 4 people in the class had done it. And the professor then delivers the following, what was to him a throwaway line. He's like, oh yeah, funny story. For literally the first 70 years of modern material science, they just ignored that hump in the data. Every single scientist around the world, when they did these tests on steel, they just smoothed the curve out so it looked nice and smooth. And then finally, some annoying person was like, no, I've run this experiment 97 times and the hump is always there and it's always in the same place. It means something. Any guesses what it meant? It's something we use. It's something that the ancient Japanese used in sword making for 4,000 years. It's called stress hardening. Stress hardening. It wasn't just a blip in the data, and it wasn't an inconvenience to the material scientists. It was conflict arising, saying, there's a detail that you're missing about the realities of life, and I'm inviting you to see it. I'm the blip in your data that's inviting you to rethink what you think you know, what you think you're comfortable with. So, if we continued to ignore the blip, we would have missed out on a whole field of material science that has to do with stress hardening of different materials. Like, how do we expose materials to carefully designed stress to actually change their performance characteristics? And it's a huge subfield of material science today, the ability to do that. But you had to look at that little incongruity in the data instead of wanting the whole thing to be smooth and pretty. I think the professor buried the lead. For him, it was a throwaway funny story about human errancy. For me, it's a deep story about humans' deep desire for consistency and comfort when confronted with uncomfortable truths. See, that's a much more interesting story for me, but maybe that's why I have this job and why I'm no longer working as an engineer. I'm thinking now about the song that we heard as an anthem. and I'm curious about something. What are the things that draw so many of us into self-medication? I think one answer to the question, one really big, uncomfortable answer to the question about what draws so many of us into self-medication is the truth of our interdependence and interconnection. Some of us are more skilled at ignoring feelings and emotions and tamping them down than others. Sometimes we call those people sensitives. In my humble experience, sensitives are usually the one to get drawn into the snare of addiction most easily. Those kids who mom and dad just couldn't hide their fighting from, even if they only did it when the kid was out of the house. They knew something was up. They were sensitive to the energies of life, and they couldn't turn it off, so they numbed it. One of my favorite authors, Stephen Jenkinson, did a tour a couple years ago. For me, that tour happened in the wake of my sister's opioid overdose death. And he talked about why opioids, like why is it this opioid epidemic is so powerful? And he said, it's an anesthetic. And he's a word guy. And he said, aesthetic is the appreciation of beauty. We're trying to numb our appreciation for beauty because sometimes the dark side of the beauty coin is more pain than we can bear. But the truth of all of that hints at a deeper level of spiritual and emotional and psychic interconnection among all of us than the current reductionist paradigm would acknowledge. We don't need all 9 of the weird things to be true, but even if just a few of them are true, it seems to be enough. We know that the speed of light does not stop the transmission of information. And considering that using general relativity, the speed of light is the foundation for our entire theory of time and space, that might call a few other things into question. We know that when it's alive, DNA, which science tells us is just another kind of dead molecule, transmits and receives light. And it uses light between strands of DNA in different cells to communicate biorhythm processes. Which means that the neurochemistry of the brain is not the only possible source for consciousness. There's an entire interactive network of light happening inside all living things simultaneously at the same time. Now, whether that network of light communications has something to do with consciousness or not, we don't know. Because we don't understand what consciousness is. Maybe it's misguided of me. I'm hoping to make you just a little bit uncomfortable this morning. I hope you'll go along with me on that ride. My goal in making you uncomfortable is to invite you to question whether the reductionisms that are du jour in the culture out there are the right ones. This interdependence thing not only means that there might be mysteries and secrets that unite science and religion that we don't understand yet, but that we can understand. or can utilize, can relate to. But as I often like to say, the more banal version of it is that we still all need each other to do this work. This isn't a great person of history moment where I'm hoping for a new Einstein to come along and just tell us how it all is so we can have another comfortable theory. What interdependence means deeply is that we are either in struggle together or we're opting out. And I'm inviting you to be in struggle. I'm inviting you not to write it off that your dog seems to always know when you're coming home. One of the weirder studies that I read this week was a woman in the UK signed up for this study. She had very irregular hours and a dog who she was convinced always knew when she was coming home. She convinced a scientist friend of hers who was interested in this stuff. They set up like webcams and stuff, and what they found with like statistically significant probability was when she was at work and turned her attention to starting to come home, whether she was working 1 mile away or 40 miles away from the house, within seconds of her turning her attention to getting ready to go home, the dog's behavior noticeably changed. Now, that's real uncomfortable, isn't it? Why is that so uncomfortable? Because it defies our expectations of how we've been told the world works. It defies it. Now, am I saying that this one is absolutely true? I'm not. I'm just saying that, like, I want you to recognize how quietly important your comfort at no ability is a power in your life. Because that invitation to conflict, that invitation to growth and expansion, that's the thing it's going to come at the cost of. But here's the fallacy. The fallacy is that you needed that certainty to be safe. That's the lie you've been sold. The certainty about how things are is what keeps you safe. Another nice lie related to this is the lie of hypervigilance. For those of us like me who were raised in very stressful homes, we learned that overperforming cognitively is the way you stay safe. It took me almost 50 years to discover, no, that's the way you stay stressed out. I got rid of it. No, still here. Still here. But my energy is different than it was when I thought that I had to keep myself safe by thinking faster than everyone else. The negative unintended consequence was people didn't understand. I didn't understand why so many people thought I was condescending. Well, I was condescending because I held myself to a standard of thinking faster than everyone else, which turned into belief that I actually did think faster than everybody else. You can't teach anything unless you show up to learn. That's another deep subsidiary truth of interdependence. You can't teach anything unless you show up open to learn. It's another important way in which we all need each other. So I do hope that each and every one of us in here will honor the Captain Obvious version of interdependence. And I'm going to read it again. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. And I hope while you're doing that everyday work, that you'll also key on this little piece of it that I've hinted at today, this we acknowledge our place in it. If that's not an invitation to conflict and deepening, I don't know what is. If you think you know what our place is, I'm inviting you to question that. I'm inviting you to question that. Amen.
We take an offering, excuse me, each week to sustain this spiritual home and to support the work of our fellowship. If you are visiting, we invite you to fill out a visitor card, which is located in the back of the seat in front of you, and you can put that in the plate or return that card to the visitor table in the back. For offertory music, we have Someone to Watch Over Me by George and Ira Gershwin, performed by Joe Nesheim and Judy Mayo.
Sometimes we're called to add our voice to the chorus. Sometimes we're called to speak aloud a message resonating in our own hearts. If you're called to reflect on today's service or express a gratitude, please raise your hand for the microphone.
Of you know, knowing that your dog knowing that you are coming home. I mean, is it a level of quantum physics? Is it like a sixth dimension? What is that study? I want to learn more.
Yeah. I'll send you the link to the thing where I found it. I don't know. I mean, like, we don't have a theory that would explain it yet, right? Quantum entanglement is one way that we've proven that information can travel faster than light. So it just kind of opens a door that says, when we measure something like this, like the fact that we don't know everything means that, oh, okay, we shouldn't just dismiss this out of hand as some weird randomness. Like, maybe this is like the blip that leads us to stress hardening, to understanding something important about the universe that we don't currently get, right? But our first tendency is to be like, nope, that doesn't fit in my paradigm. I'm just, no, that's baloney. It's like, I can find 5 articles today that debunk that study, right? So, I don't know. My neighbor happens to be like a world-class physicist. Like, he runs experiments at CERN. And we were having dinner last night, and I had to ask him about this stuff because I've been reading too much weird stuff this week. So I apologize if that landed on you, as Eric, you threw too much weird stuff at us this week. But I'm talking to my physicist friend, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know, like, is it possible that during the Big Bang, like, all matter in the universe was quantum entangled, and that could create a field where instantaneous transmission of communication? He's like, that hypothesis is interesting, but not currently supported by the data. I believe it's this way. I told you he's a physicist. This is how he talks with things. So, but he's also a religious and spiritual guy. So he's like, no, but I like that idea. That's a cool concept. So I don't know. Like, I don't want us to land on another quick, easy solution. I want us to learn to hold space for some mystery. I want us to let go of the need for certainty a little bit, so that we can, what did it say, find our right place. We have too long supposed that that right place is by being omniscient in some way. That if we can't know it, it's not worth knowing, right? That's an ego defense thing, right? Leaving some space in the universe for things that are unknown but plausible is a way that we can start to inhabit a bigger universe, where we don't feel so alone and lonely and squished, and where we don't spend so much time wondering why we feel disconnected when we believe. Self-fulfilling prophecy is a concept we can all get, right? It might be a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you believe you are alone in a universe that's uncaring, you're going to feel alone, as if the universe is uncaring. Yeah, so you find what you look for, right? So if you're looking for the ways that we're all connected to each other, you're going to find those. If you're looking for ways to validate your aloneness, you're going to find that. And this is the same as the particle wave duality in physics. Photon. If you set up your gear to look for a wave, the photon's a wave. If you set up your gear to look for a particle, the photon's a particle. The weird meta-level suggestion about this is that your consciousness makes a difference in the universe. I mean, I read a theory this week that was like, it seems like the ground of being in the new quantum paradigm might be that consciousness is the root of all being, which is, I don't know what the Buddhists have been saying for 4,000 years. But if you read books like The Holographic Universe or some other studies, that's kind of what they're starting to suggest, is that there's a deep interrelationship with the energy patterns that make up all known matter in relationship and space-time and consciousness. It's wacky. I get it. That's a very uncomfortable paradigm. That doesn't mean it's not true. Anyone else? Oh.
Talk about being uncomfortable. Before I came here this morning, I think it's Eric Anderson, one of the smartest guys about artificial intelligence, was saying that in a matter of a few years, like 5 or 6 years, the artificial intelligence machines will contain more intelligence. They'll be smarter than all of the human beings on Earth combined. And where's our role in that?
They can't do their job without wise instruction. I hope that's our role.
Well, this is too interesting to let go of. 2 or 3 years ago, there was on one of the nature channels, PBS, one of the nature channels, they actually ran the film of that dog experiment. It's a split screen. So on one side, you see the film of the woman at work, and the other side, you see the film of the dog at home. And the clock is running at the bottom of the screen, and you can actually see as she starts to get her purse and her coat, you can see the dog perk up and look around and go to the door to wait for her. So there's something going on there. The other comment I would make, even if the universe is uncaring, we could still care for each other, whatever the universe does.
Well, I taught English for 29 years, and I taught Emerson, and I always wanted to be a transcendentalist, and I think, well, I can be, but I just think it goes to that, where we're all a part of the great oversoul, and so we are connected. And why wouldn't our dogs be part of that, and why wouldn't we, be able to communicate in some deeper connected way that we don't understand?
Hello. I have two things. First of all, I think saying that it's wacky or weird or outside of our comfort zone alienates us from it and our perception of it. And so I think that I believe that it's real, and it comes down to faith and what you believe and what doesn't, and if it makes you feel better, there you go. But if you look at the earth and the trees and animals, and there's an interconnectedness that's so far above human understanding that it's absolutely ridiculous. And if you've ever experienced a significant loss, you know that there's other parts of existence that is just existing, and that you can get a glimpse into it if you open yourself up to it and don't put any negative connotation to it. And it's fascinating. It's definitely a fascinating subject.
Thank you, Heather. I accept your gentle correction that it's kind of like calling my own stories dumb. Trying to soft pedal it. Maybe I should stop. Mr. Spoon.
Okay, I just want to comment on your comment about being hypervigilant. I am doing a lot of work with people who are being picked up by ICE. And as we think about ourselves and our own growth, I would just like you to consider that there are some times and people in circumstances where they do not have the privilege we have, and they have to be hypervigilant so that they may survive. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Spoon. Another loving correction gently accepted. All right, I'm going to stop it after these two. TJ?
Hey, everybody. All right, 3 sentences. Here we go. So I was watching a TV series basically about a trio of drag queens that were traveling around the country. In every episode, they go to a small town and so forth. And regardless of what you think about that particular activity, not one of mine, something that should concern everybody that comes up in just about every episode is how the local townspeople are basically in hiding in some sense or another. They feel disconnected. One episode had mentioned about a person who had self-terminated not long before. So it's interesting that if you think about trauma, that itself is an odd form of connection in and of itself, or at least a different form of it. And love is as well. And so it's kind of almost an odd duality in some ways is one way of thinking of it. So people pretending they're isolated islands, that's a perception thing. I mean, say what you will about Schrodinger's cat or Schrodinger's pulpit. Depending on the church doors, you don't know until you open the church doors, right? But it's things are a lot more shades of gray and less black and white.
Just briefly, I wanted to mention that I thought it was interesting about the curve of the strength of the steel and how the blip occurred shortly before the steel broke. And then you mentioned that it was stress. And I just wonder if there's any significance to that in our relationships.
Ooh, do people stress harden? I love that. I'm going to save that for another day. Thank you all for sharing. And for being willing to show up to a universe that hopefully has a little more mystery in it than when you arrived this morning. Quick announcements. There will be, oh, am I missing something? I am. I'm sorry, Judy. Our second hymn, Break Not the Circle, number 323 in the gray hymnal. Lyrics will be projected. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able. Today from noon to 1 here in the sanctuary, we will have our follow-up from our new member orientation class that we started last Saturday. If you're here as a guest and you're interested in learning more about the fellowship, you're welcome to hang out and join us today, even if you weren't here last week. Following up on that, there's also a sign-up sheet for a joining ceremony at the membership table. Our next joining ceremony will be on August 3rd. So we'll have a new member joining ceremony on that day, and we will also have our first of the month potluck for August on that day. So a great chance to sign the book, join the congregation, and hang out and enjoy some extended fellowship. And now I invite Vivian up to read our affirmation.
Okay. As we prepare to return to the world, we remind ourselves through our affirmation to carry our work from this place to every corner of our lives. Please join me in the call and response. Love is the doctrine of this church. We are here to love. The quest of truth is its sacrament. We are here to learn. Service is its prayer. We are here to care for others. To dwell together in peace. We are here to live in peace. To seek knowledge in freedom. We are here to honor our differences. To serve humanity in fellowship. We are all connected in spirit. To the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. We are here to grow. Thus do we covenant with one another. Okay. Please join me in reciting the words to extinguish the chalice. It's up there. With three. Love is the center.
As we explore and rest, engage and heal,
Love remains the center.
when all we can see is cold ashes, love remains.
All right. I lead you.
Trying out a new benediction this morning. May you find the courage to love yourself and to love others, even those who do harm, even those who you call enemy. And through that love, may you and they find healing. May you and they find justice. May you and they remember that you are siblings, brothers, sisters. Go in peace, and may it be so.